City of Stevens Point Plan Commission meeting, recorded May 5, 2025.
At 6 o'clock, I will call the regular meeting of the City Plan Commission to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, you can. Mayor Wiesa.
Here.
Alderperson Kneebone.
Here.
Commissioner Artson.
Here.
Commissioner Beacom.
Is excused.
Commissioner Moscoviak.
Here.
Commissioner Rice.
Here.
Commissioner Schuler.
Here. And we do have a quorum, so we will continue on. Item number 1 is the report of the April 7th, 2025 meeting of the Plan Commission. Those minutes and actions are included in your packet. Commissioner Kneebone. Alder Kneebone.
Move approval of
Aldermissioner.
Yeah, whatever.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Give a second to Arnson. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Any corrections, additions, nothing?
Mayor?
Yes.
I just had a comment about item number 7 on what is page 5 of 77. The motion, Mr. Beacom's motion actually included with staff recommendations, and there were 2 staff recommendations on the item, so I'd like to amend that to have that reflected.
Item number 7, motion to approve the site plan as presented.
It should be per staff recommendations.
So yes, Commissioner, we can add per staff recommendations, but when it says as presented, that usually includes the staff recommendations that were included.
I would agree to disagree.
Fair enough. We will add it. Make sure that gets added per staff recommendations. So now the motion will be to approve as amended. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 3 is a public hearing on an action request from Charles Koch, representing Koch-Taub Joint Revocable Trust as for a conditional use permit to construct a detached garage with a reduced rear yard setback at 1665 Main Street with the parcel identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.02 sub 1 sub H sub 3. And all of the alderpersons should have gotten a copy of some email correspondence that we got from neighboring property owners supporting the conditional use. If you don't have that, let me know, and I'll give you an extra copy. Anybody from the public that wishes to see it, we have copies up here for you. And Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So the applicant is requesting to construct a 720 square foot detached garage on the southern end of the property off of the existing concrete driveway. So about 95% plus times, anytime somebody submits a building permit application to construct a new garage, typically they utilize the setback provision that's outlined early on in our zoning code, which means that which says that if the garage is at least 10 feet away from the primary structure and maintains a building height no greater than 15 feet in height, the minimum setback requirement from the side and rear lot line would be 3 feet. This property is located within our traditional neighborhood overlay district, essentially encompasses the downtown area, campus area, and more of City Hall south towards the railroad tracks. This overlay district allows for lesser setback requirements both for houses and for detached garages because of the more compact style of development that already exists. So this request, since it cannot meet the minimum 3 foot side yards, 3 foot rear yard setback from the south lot line, they are requesting this conditional use permit for a 2 foot setback off of this south lot line. Next slide, or actually slide right here, shows the proposed site plan. You can see the existing house with the detached garage on the south end of the property, again with that detached garage, or the existing driveway servicing that detached garage. Then on the right hand side you can see some architectural mock-ups of what the proposed garage will look like. Staff's recommendation is to approve, and be happy to take any questions.
Before we open the public hearing, any clarifying questions from any of the commissioners? Yes, sir. Commissioner Rice.
Just to confirm, looks like via photos and satellite, this is going to be pretty much adjacent to the neighbor to the south's detached garage. Do you know what the setback is roughly from that lot line for that neighboring garage, or roughly what the distance will be in between the two
Offhand, what the proposed separation will be, that I don't know. What I will say is there is not a minimum separation requirement between two detached garages on two different lots. So,
Okay. Now I'll open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this conditional use request, step to the lectern and provide that testimony. Public hearing remains open. For the third and final time, the public hearing remains open. Seeing no one wishing to offer testimony, I'll declare the public hearing closed, bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioners, thoughts, comments, or a motion?
I guess I'd raise one about, can't they just narrow the garage to make it fit the setback requirements? What's the driving force for, I mean, is it a standard?
yeah, really to maintain a two-stall garage, because if they would meet the 3-foot setback off the south lot line, they would also have to maintain the 10-foot separation between the garage and the house. And I mean, you're shaving off, I'm not sure exactly how much separation would be presented out here, but you're shaving off a good amount of width, so much so that it could interfere with the ability to have a two-stall side-by-side garage.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, then I will move approval
Thank you,
of the, is it conditional use permit to construct a detached garage at 1665 Main Street. There we go.
Do we have a second?
With consistent with staff recommendations.
Okay, and seconded by Schuler. Discussion there?
Well, just a comment that it does seem to align with the existing plot line, so I just didn't have an issue with it, but wondering.
Well, and I can tell you, some of the smaller lots on the north side, we've got Alder Broderick here. Some of those smaller lots, I can tell you that the rain from my garage likely falls on the neighbor's land. That's how tight we are.
Yeah, I'm familiar, so, good.
Just how it works. All right. All those in favor of the conditional use signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. It'll go to council in 2 weeks. Item number 4 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from the City of Stevens Point to amend the official street map of the City of Stevens Point, establishing Starling Court as a planned future public street with an unaddressed parcel bounded by Hoover Road and Heffron. This is that new subdivision. We're trying to be consistent with our naming, especially for emergency services. Even private roads need to be consistent with our naming scheme. So if there's ever an emergency, there's not confusion at dispatch or the police department or the fire department. Adam, I think I took most of the thunder there, but.
Yeah, one thing I'll add is it's been a hot minute since we've had an official street map amendment request. But essentially what an official street map is the long-term transportation policy document dictating where our existing streets and alleys, and more importantly, arguably more importantly, where proposed street extensions, new streets, new alleys would be located. So this is more just a technicality than anything, since there isn't a exact timeline for when this road will be constructed. What I will say, just to be blunt, both for this request and the next request, this item does not mean that the road will be constructed. Ultimately, there will be another item brought before you folks, the actual right-of-way dedication. That will be the consideration as to whether or not to build the road itself. So this is merely just making sure this proposal is in alignment with our long-term transportation plans.
Any clarifying questions before I open up that public hearing? I don't think so. Public hearing is declared open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this request, step forward. Name and address, please, for the record.
Name is Tom Forster, 2933 Dunnigan Drive. So our property, the back of our property would move right into that proposed development. I guess I have a couple questions. The board may not be able to answer these, but maybe you have some past experiences to give me a little guidance. First off, is there a timeline for building the road? You kind of indicated no.
Not really, no. And Generally, during a public hearing, we don't do questions and answers, but I will allow those latitudes because, yeah, if you got questions, you want answers. I understand that. So the road will be constructed along with the development, but it's going to be a private road. At some point in the future, it will be a public road. Fine line.
Okay.
But for all intents and purposes, it will look and act like a public road, except we won't be maintaining it.
All right, so I'm going to ask another question that you maybe can't answer then. Is there a difference if it's a private road? Does the whole road go in, does the road go in before the development starts? Or does it go in kind of piecemeal?
I can't answer that for you, but I can tell you, generally speaking, they're going to put the road in right away.
Okay, thank you.
Public hearing remains open. Did the developer give you any indication?
For timeline? So when that conversation was brought up a couple months ago, his plan was over the next 3 years working on it, but obviously that was a few months ago and
Okay.
perspectives may have changed.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to start building at the end of that road until the road's in. So it makes sense that they would probably put the road in sooner rather than later.
And I know he's currently working on financing, so who knows how long that will take just to get that all squared away. So
That's true. And I got to be honest, just because things get approved doesn't mean they actually happen.
Yeah.
We've got an approved site plan for a Meijer grocery store out on the Far East Side, 5, 6, 7 years now.
good 6.
So this one looks like it's going to happen, though. Public hearing is still open. Public hearing remains open. For the third and final time, the public hearing is open. Hearing and seeing no one else wishing to testify, I will declare the public hearing closed. Bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioners, what are your wishes? Mr. Schuler.
A point of clarification, it seems like on the plat, it is indicated that the road right-of-way is dedicated to the public on the plat. And so to, I guess, understand your comment about the private road versus public road. During construction, it's not considered a public street. Is that what I take it the meaning is? Because it's as a plat dedicated as public right-of-way.
Yeah, until such time that the right-of-way dedication request is reviewed and approved by you folks in the council. At that time, then it would become, public.
Okay. And then I was curious when we were going to vote on the actual ordinance to update it, because the ordinance, or the thing we're going to act on contains both this and the next item. But the language for the actual updating the...
Oh, the street map? The official street map?
Yeah.
So that doesn't go through Plan Commission, right?
The official street map?
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes through both this body and the council.
So when are we doing that?
That would be tonight.
Is all
Right. It was included in this Starling Court item, but then we have the Joe after that, and I was just curious when we actually vote on the ordinance.
But
Yeah,
council
so
will
that'll be
voting on those two,
After
right?
Joe?
correct. Yeah, I mean, well, I think I get what you're asking for. So our surveyor created one ordinance for both the amendments to Starling Court and for the Joe and Evelyn Court.
And it was included in the packet as a Starling item, so
Correct.
That's why I was asking.
Yep.
Okay.
That confused me a little bit, sorry. I wasn't quite sure what you're asking. Adam figured it out, though. Yes?
I just have a comment, and it probably doesn't mean much to anybody. Being an avid bird watcher, I find it very sad that they named this after an invasive, aggressive species that is making it hard for native birds to survive. And I live on sandpiper, and we have hawk and owl and warbler and kingfisher out there. Now we have starling. Just saying. We're a high flyer bird city too, so it just seems a little unfortunate that it's named after a really nasty bird, but that's okay.
Again, if you're of a certain age, that'd be like a tippy-hedron sort of complex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be that way.
Yeah.
If they all go there, that would be okay.
I don't know, we got a street named Division.
I know, that's
How
sad
welcoming
too.
is that?
That's,
All right, we still don't have a motion, though.
I'd move to approve per staff recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Muskoviac. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 5 is a public hearing and subsequent action on a request from the City of Stevens Point to amend the official street map of the City of Stevens Point, extending Evelyn Court and Joe Street as a planned future public street within an unaddressed parcel bounded by Golla Road, Brilowski Road, and Regent Street. And I should mention that lots are already for sale.
So as folks on the commission recall, when we platted out the land that currently houses the Forest Creek subdivision, this commission also took action for the city to purchase this property that's identified on the screen. The reason for that property acquisition is to maintain contiguity for annexing both this land and, more importantly, the Forest Creek subdivision. I think late last year or so is when that was officially annexed. Again, as I mentioned during the last item, this official street map amendment does not mean that the road will occur, especially for this item. If and when this land is subdivided, you'll have to go through the subdivision plat process, the right-of-way dedication. This is merely intended to provide some, or to get some direction both from you folks and from the council as to where future street connectivity will occur. So that will assist city staff down the road in terms of further subdividing this property and then presenting that request before you. So again, you can see Evelyn Court and Joe Street. The intention behind this is to connect both the northern and southern segments of those two streets, northern segment north of Golla and the southern segment south of Regent Street. So staff would recommend approval.
Any clarifying questions again from the commissioners before I open up the public hearing? All roads lead to Forest Creek. I will declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to offer testimony on this request, step to the lectern and provide that testimony.
Good evening. John Helpman, 506 Leonard Street. I live on the corner of Leonard and Regent. Well, right here. What's going to become of this section right here? There's a small strip. You say there's already land is already for sale.
No, lots for sale up in Forest Creek, the subdivision that's platted north of there. We do not have this subdivision platted at all yet.
Okay.
So none of this is even in the planning phase yet. It's likely that it will be at some point in the future.
It will be.
But right now, we're just looking at continuing those roads through.
All right. Well, the road's already built. You just got to blacktop it. So.
Public hearing remains open. For the third and final time, the public hearing is open. Seeing and hearing no one else wishing to speak, we'll declare that public hearing closed. Bring it back to the commissioners. Commissioners?
I guess just a comment or curious where, there's a comment in the packet about, kind of doing this before a preliminary plat, but, the proposed shape of the two roads just creates some unusual, potentially shaped lots. Just curious, has there been any preliminary plat or design? Are there any concerns about, potential kind of practical subdivision and development, both in between those two roads on the north end as well as to the west of Evelyn Court?
Yeah, short answer, were there any preliminary plans that were brought forth before this body? No. I think this idea of extending Evelyn and Joe Court provides the most flexibility in terms of how the lots are ultimately subdivided, how wide will they be, how big will they be. Obviously, the chunk of land along just west of Evelyn Court, as you mentioned, is arguably the biggest chunk of land to work with. So if that's the area, if there's still a desire amongst folks to have a mixture in lot sizes, having some both small and larger lots, that would likely be the area that we would target the slightly larger than average lot size, but slightly larger than average lots.
I can chime in as well to, clarify the space between Joe and Evelyn Court that are shown here. There is enough space to have 2 rows of parcels, so parcels off of each street. That space to the west of Evelyn Court is also left a little larger, as we do have to factor in stormwater in this area. We do anticipate needing some sort of stormwater feature that would go take up some of that space and doesn't necessarily need street frontage.
Right.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schuler?
I make a motion to approve the amendment of the street map to include the extension of Evelyn and Joe.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Let's see, we'll give the second to Rice. Discussion?
One quick question.
Yes.
That I already know the answer to, but for anybody who's looking at the packet and they look at the street plan that's provided with the packet, it looks like the streets haven't been dedicated in the Forest Creek subdivision, but they have.
Yes.
So if anybody looks at that and says, well, why aren't there streets to the north that you're connecting to? Just want people to know that they have been, and the map will be updated and to include both.
Yes. Thank you for that clarification. Good point. Motion and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 6 is a request from Susan Crawford and Stephen Klein.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
Do we officially take action on the ordinance to amend? Is my question, I guess.
These,
The language was included in the packet, and I don't know if the actions we've taken actually move that forward as it's
official
written.
street actions, so that was
or-
approved. And to amend the official street. So yes, the action that you have just taken on both of those amends the official street map.
So it's also amending, recommending the language that's in the packet that actually does the
The
amendment.
ordinance would, yes, the ordinance would be updated in accordance with the amendment to the street map.
Okay, just wanted to double check before we
Right?
moved on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be similar setup
It's all under
to,
one.
yeah, similar setup to that of like a future land use map amendment where the recommendation is to approve or deny the change in designation. However, there's also the ordinance itself included in the packet to amend the comp plan. So kind of this comparing apples and apples types of requests.
There's different ways to do things.
There is.
Moving on. Yep.
All right, item 6 is a request from Susan Crawford and Stephen Klein for a fence waiver to install a 12-foot tall privacy fence along the rear lot line of the property located at 221 Union Street, 237 Union Street, and 301 Union Street, with the parcels identified in your packet, consistent with Chapter 23.01, Sub 16, Sub G. Adam?
All right, so as the mayor mentioned, the applicants are requesting to install the 12-foot tall privacy fence along the rear lot line. That would be the eastern lot line abutting the single-family residential lots with that of Pacelli High School's parking lot. By ordinance, the maximum height that's allowed for fencing in this location would be 10 feet. So the exception that's being requested is for an additional 2 feet in height for the privacy fence. So I mentioned this in the packet, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more during our special plan commission meeting later on this month. But seeking an exemption or a variance are kind of synonyms of one another in a way. Seeking an exception to our fencing guidelines, a variance, is kind of an outlier in terms of how we address other types of variance requests, both those brought before our zoning board of appeals and those brought before you folks. All other types of variance requests, it's subject to the same review standards as outlined in state statutes. Is there an unnecessary hardship, unique property limitations due to that hardship, and then really general impact on the neighborhood. For exceptions to fencing, it kind of goes a different track. So I have the code section included on the bottom of the screen. I guess the best way to summarize it is that it keeps it very open-ended in terms of factors that you as a commission deem pertinent to consider said fence request. That frankly is really the the opportunity that keeps that door cracked slightly open for considering a variance request, right? If this request was subject to the same old variance requests or variance standards, I think it would be a pretty cut and dry case in terms of a hardship not being present. However, since these other factors are under consideration for you folks, kind of leaves that door a little bit open. So the arguments, some commentary that I included in the memorandum of why I have really some degree of comfortness to this request and don't believe that other properties, property owners here in the city can request a similar variance and create that precedent is because of really the topography in this area. There's a dip about 2 feet along the rear lot line, and instead of filling it all in and potentially damaging the mature trees that exist along the backyard of these 3 properties, adding that 2 additional feet in fence height would help preserve those trees as well. And then lastly, I provided some comments in there just about trying to minimize land use conflicts. Obviously, a single family residential lot, it's not ideal for that to directly abut, in this case, more of a higher intensity type of institutional use. That's normally in the practice of zoning, that's normally not how normally not the route that's taken. For situations like this where you're dealing with existing conditions, usually the way to go about it is to correct that is to install privacy fencing or some sort of screening. The example I gave in the packet was the Tsunami Car Wash on the east side of town. This commission requested an additional privacy fence along the side lot line to provide that buffer between the car wash and the existing or the adjoining residential lot. So that's kind of a similar thought process that I had with this request, and that really having this additional buffer better serves that land use transition between these 2 uses. So my recommendation is to approve. I see the 2 applicants are in the back of the room too that can answer any questions.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Schuler.
I would good-naturedly argue that it's not synonymous, all of the terms that you used, and that different circumstances call for different types of regulation. And I think the code originally used the word exception because it didn't rise to the level of a variance or a conditional use or something like that, that the Plan Commission and the Council would have the flexibility to look at a situation like this with relative independence. And as long as you have proper findings of fact, in this case, very much based on topography, you've got a well-grounded reason for making a decision. So I wouldn't want to turn something like this into more of a hardcore review, as I guess as an aside for our subsequent discussions on what's going to happen with the zoning code. So I think that the request was very well documented, and the staff analysis is right on, and I would move to approve it as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or comments? Yes.
Yeah, I would say that adding 2 feet of height definitely would affect the trees, and I think that's a legit hardship. You've got some old-growth mature trees in that area that you just don't want to lose. So I think that qualifies as a hardship, which, again, makes this easier to support.
Thank you. Comments from the audience? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. And now we have item number 7, a request from Jason Nguyen and Kirsten Miller to annex the property located at 1213 Torun Road with the parcel identified in your packet from the town of Hull to the city of Stevens Point. Adam?
All right, just for some context, lot you can see is shown on the subject property is shown on the image on the left-hand side of the screen. For context in terms of what's in the city versus what's in the town of Hull, the olive shaded parcels, that's within the city's limits. The tan shaded parcels is within the town of Hull. So the applicant is requesting this annexation from the town hall into the city to help facilitate a future development of a single family residence on the property. For considering an annexation request, at least in terms of this commission, there's really two factors that have to be met. One, consistency with the city's comprehensive plan, in this case, the extraterritorial land use map. Our extraterritorial land use map identifies this lot for residential use. So the planned development of this property, should the annexation be successful, would be in alignment with the comprehensive plan. And then the second factor is really meeting the statutory requirements for annexation. Having Department of Administration consider the request, have certain exhibits included within the packet itself, the petition document, the application, the ordinance amendment, annexation survey, meets and bounds legal descriptions, which is all included in the packet. So last thing I'll say is Department of Administration is currently in the process of reviewing this annexation request. I believe through state statutes they have a shot clock of about 20 or 25 days or so to consider the request or make a determination upon receipt. So it's a little bit up in the air should this commission recommend approval as to if this will be on the May Council agenda. It'll really be based off of when DOA provides input. So staff's recommendation is to approve.
Commissioner Arnson?
I got a question. For this lot to be developed, it would have to be annexed to the city, correct? Because it's next to a line and parcels next to existing services have to be connected, and in order to connect, you got to annex?
Correct, yeah, they wouldn't be able to pull a well and septic permit through the county since this is directly contiguous with the city.
Any other questions? Or a motion?
Is there a public?
We will as soon as we have a motion.
There's not a public hearing.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, no public hearing, you're right.
Oh,
But we will have public comment should they choose.
All right. I'd move to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Nebo.
Are there staff recommendations that I should include with that?
I do not believe
Just to
so.
approve, no conditions.
Yeah, it's just an annexation request, so.
Right.
No typical.
All right. Yep, good.
Any comments from the audience?
Alder Schuda from District 8.
Yes, sir.
Supports the staff recommendation.
Thank you, sir. Hearing and seeing no one else, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 8 is a request from the city of Stevens Point to enter into a land swap agreement with Portage County. This is the first of a couple of meetings that we'll have this month. In regards to this, it starts on page 55 of your packet. I want to point out that this is an agreement proposal. Plan Commission statutorily has to make a recommendation to council on the acquisition or disposition of land. And that's why you're reviewing it. That, and it's also in the best interest of the public to have transparency. Tomorrow at Space and Properties, the County Space and Properties Committee will be considering the same thing, and provided everybody is in agreement, then we will move to the contract phase of this. This is not the contract. This is a tentative agreement. So we're putting it out. This is the first time the public has seen this. But I can tell you that city staff and county staff, as well as a few other key players, have worked for the better part of 8 months to a year on this particular proposal. We have County Executive John Pavelski joining us tonight for any questions in regards to the proposed agreement. But really, this is our opportunity to look at it. This would be a swap with the city vacating our portion, 27% of City Hall at the County City Building. And in exchange, the county would provide us 1039 Ellis Street and some of the surrounding parcels. The reason there's so many parcels there is because when the county acquired those, they didn't bother combining them. They just kept the parcels as is. So you'll see what looks like a rather busy amount of parcels, but really it's a swap, no financial exchange, these parcels for this parcel. Any questions? John, anything you'd like to say?
I mean, we've been working on this deal, we've kind of working on this thing for 20 years. A little bit of the history is...
John, I got to ask you to come to the lectern, though, because the people who watch it 2 days from now, won't be able to hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Wiesa. Yeah, again, like Mayor Wiesa indicated, we've been working on this for about 8 to 12 months. The county does need to build a jail LEC and build a courthouse, but through planning and design, we found out that we can actually remodel the current courthouse for a considerably less amount of money and create the needs that we have for the county as far as safety and operations and the availability of a fourth courtroom. So we actually need the city to move out of that space, because then it makes all that extra space available and makes all the plans work. And we put this together. It's pretty much self-explanatory. The swapping of the land gives you the ability to move into a property that is not on the tax roll. You can either tear it down and rebuild, or you can remodel. That's up to you with whatever the design requirements come back, and we'd appreciate an approval of this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any comments from the audience? Go ahead.
Andrea Olson, 410 Franklin Street. I'd like to know from the commissioners how much information you've been privy to regarding the dollar amounts being discussed with this property trade. The general public has not been aware of any dollar amounts. If you have not been privy to any financial information, how can you, as a body, make a reasonable, informed decision, or are you making one's use of best judgment, a $5 million plus gut feeling? Mayor Wiesa used many unknown value arguments against property and jail discussions at county meetings in the past. Now he is pushing for an approval of a property transfer with no financial information associated with it that we know of as the public, or possibly that you know of. If there is information that exists, when is the public going to be made aware of it? When are you going to be made aware of it? Because everything that I know so far was only your council members and mayor were privy to in closed sessions. So does financial information related to the value of the city space in the courthouse exist? The value of each parcel of land, the cost of the remodel of this property or building that is going to be acquired? What happens if it ends up having to be raised? You're going to see spending $1 million on raising a building. We saw what happened with Shopko after the city acquired that property, then had to pay to raise it. Is this, or could the city, oh, sorry. At the last council meeting, we were discussing 140 plus buildings the city owns needing Band-Aids, none of which the mayor said had met their lifespan end, because this is not a calculation that exists. Or does it after raising a church and apartment complex blocks away from these parcels? Do you trust his judgment? Should the city rush into a property transfer without knowing the cost of a renovation of the Ellis Street owned building, or any costs right now? I couldn't make a decision like this if it was my own property and somebody asked me to trade a house with me or trade a bunch of properties. Can you really do that? Maybe this commission should vote no. Instead, suggest spending $50,000 to $100,000 on temporary walls in the Great Lakes building. Let the county sell the property and get it back on the tax roll. Take the money that you would be owed then for moving out of the courthouse and use that to pay for those walls, and not rush into a decision now that could cost you millions, when a temporary solution for a couple years while everything is figured out does exist. You want a parking garage. Well, if it gets too busy at the Great Lakes building, then maybe you can justify a parking garage. There's many issues that are coming up with building on the properties downtown, wanting more surface area, wanting less apartments to do that because people can't pay for things. Why are we not trying to get this property back onto the tax roll? We're just taking more and more properties off or keeping them off. And this is another multi-million-dollar decision where the public knows nothing about the financials. When do we get to see anything? And who else has seen stuff?
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, Andrea, there is no financial consideration on this. This is a swap.
Yes, But there's still value.
There is an estimated value. And do you have those numbers off the top of your head, Adam or Jared? It was like $800,000 or $900,000 for our 27%, like 1.2 for the county side.
Something like that, yes.
So they're estimates because they are not taxable at this point. So the assessor did an estimate. It's a relatively fair swap, but there is no financial consideration. There will be no money changing hands. This is swapping our 27% of the building for 1039 Ellis, after which, if the council decides it's for the sole purpose of remodeling and building City Hall, which will save us 40 to 60% over building new, but that will be further consideration later down the pipe. Right now, what we're talking about is the first step, which is the land swap. And it's up to this body to make a recommendation, one way or the other, to council. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Okay, commissioners? Yes.
This is the first time, I mean, I know you guys have been working on this swap thing, and I think it's a good idea. I know that the county has been struggling with the jail issue and the courthouse issue. And I'm not sure that it's finally resolved. Is the courthouse going to be down in Plover? They bought land for that.
This is part of that, Commissioner. So the county will remodel the county city building into the courthouse, saving the county taxpayers billions of dollars as opposed to building new. The city will then in turn use 1039 Ellis Street to remodel for City Hall. The Great Lakes building doesn't have enough space for City Hall per our studies. Ellis does, and it's got a little room for growth. So that's why we've been working on those buildings. Currently, neither one of them are on the tax roll, so we're not affecting the taxpayers in that regard. Could the property be sold and put on the tax roll? Yes. But then the city would be put into a position to build new, which can be as much as, again, 40 to 60% higher than a remodel. And we'll have those numbers presented to the council and the finance committee as we get them. We don't have the remodel costs yet because we don't own the land yet.
All right. No, that's fine. I'm a planning commissioner. I'm not allowed to think about finances. But I am a county
You're a taxpayer.
employee.
You can think about finances.
But, so now they are moving away from the Plover site for the jail and looking at keep it down?
The jail, and I don't want to speak for John.
Courthouse.
The jail and law enforcement center, they have purchased land in Plover. They have authorization to do the study, so they are moving ahead with the jail and law enforcement center in Plover.
So the courthouse will stay downtown.
Will be right where it is.
All right.
And giving up the city, using the city space allows them to make the necessary security changes and expansion that the county needs. So this will assure that the courthouse remains downtown.
They've been saying that for a long time, and it's
Better than
taken a
20
while.
years.
I'm good with promoting that, yes. So, thank you. I'd move to approve if that's
Thank
where
you.
we're at.
Is there a
Are there
second?
any recommendations by staff that I should include?
Seconded by Schuler. Nope, it's relatively straightforward. The council will consider it later this month along with the county committees, and then we'll draw it up. The attorneys will get together and draw it up in the form of an official contract and execute that.
Good. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone in the audience? Anyone online? Like, we just have Alderperson Schuda online, but anything? Hearing nothing? The motion is to recommend approval to council for the land swap. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. The next meeting, as I said, will be Space and Properties tomorrow. John, do you remember the time on that? 3:30. County Annex 1 and 2. And they'll make a recommendation as well, and then City Council and County Board will have their swing at it later this month. Item number 9 is a request. Thank you, John, for coming. I appreciate it. You're welcome to stay and listen to all of the other exciting things that happen in the city, or, you can go out and live life. Item number 9 is a request from authorizing the City of Stevens Point to sign a petition for a special meeting of the Portage County Business Park Owners Association for the following purposes: to consider and vote upon an amendment to the Portage County Business Park deed restriction and protective covenants, and to consider and vote upon a resolution adopting a plan of dissolution and liquidation of the Portage County Business Park Owners Association. It's a little complicated, but it boils down pretty easy. We're replacing the Business Owners Association with a business improvement district, but it's all the legal boxes that we have to do. Adam, anything to add to that?
Yeah, so when really during the transition phase late last year, with transferring administration of the business park from the county over to this recently created BID, there was the creation of the Business Park Owners Association as outlined in the deed restrictions and protective covenants for the park. So what this request entails is to really do a couple things. One is to dissolve the association. The association is basically similar to that of the Business Improvement District. The one exception is the tax levy status that the taxing status that the Business Improvement District has versus that of the association. So this request then would be to, as I mentioned, dissolve the association. Number two, as part of the creation of this Business Park Owners Association, the county transferred ownership of all of the parcels that were in the business park from their jurisdiction to the association late last year. So that would be, for the most part, the stormwater retention ponds that are located in the park, plus a scattering of, I think, about a handful, less than a handful of other parcels. So what this request would be is to convey the association's real estate assets to either the Business Improvement District or to the city. That still has to be squared away a little bit yet. And then lastly would be to amend the actual deed restrictions and protective covenants, kind of the back end work of replacing all references to the county and swapping that out with the Business Improvement District. So this request, as the mayor mentioned, is merely just to sign the petition. Since the city owns land within the business park, we have the obligation to sign a petition to hold a meeting of the association and ultimately take action.
Yes, Commissioner Schuler.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Rice. Discussion. Yes, sir.
Sooner the better, because the bid needs to be where it needs to be, and as soon as you can have these meetings, the better it will be for the business park. So.
I agree. Any comments from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 10 is considerations of amendments to the Downtown Targeted Area Master Plan. Chris, are you doing this one?
Yes, sir. As the commission may recall, last May we held a joint meeting to approve the Downtown Targeted Area Master Plan. And since that time, we have reviewed the utility easements underneath Shopko and the Shopko parking lot to make some final recommendations for the layout and uses for land within the Shopko site. So that includes the former Shopko building and the parking lot to the south, and some of the remainder of the building parcel on the northwest corner that's in this original image. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. Originally, what was proposed for the Shopko site included multiple residential buildings, multifamily residential buildings on the north half of the parcels, and then a combination of mixed-use buildings, residential, multifamily on the east, and a bus transfer facility that may have had additional uses above it on the west half of what's the existing parking lot parcel. The easements, if you wouldn't mind going back to the most previous slide, it's a little hard to see in the images, but on the certified survey map on the right-hand side of the screen, there are utility easements that run the entire length of what would be the land from Main Street to the Shopko building, where the park was planned and where the bus transfer facility was planned for. In order to save costs on redeveloping the Shopko parking lot, it was more cost-effective to leave those utility lines in place and reconsider use of the land where the bus transfer facility was, and consider a relocation of that transfer facility. So upon review with Vanderwall and Associates and internal with city staff, Public Works, and Public Utilities, making the recommendation to move the bus transfer facility to the northwest parcel and returning a mixed-use building to where that bus transfer facility was planned for, and expanding the park all the way north from Main Street to the College Court extension, best utilizing that land above those public utilities, and I guess utilizing the water and sewer mains that are currently in place underneath the parking lot. So this image indicates more of the bubble layout of the plan, showing where those mixed-use buildings are, where the residential buildings would be, and the bus transfer facility. You may see a large change in the use for the bus transfer facility. Our folks over at Central Transportation will be going through a needs assessment to understand what our financial capacity is at the bus transfer facility, and to implement a design for a transfer facility that is adequate for the city's needs. So that image may change. It may be a single-story drive-through unit if there is additional federal or state funding support that we could help meet the downtown's parking needs. We may consider an alternative, but we expect to go through a needs analysis with Central Transportation staff for the final design of that bus transfer facility. So I believe that summarizes the revisions for the Shopko plan. The next image is a draft image that was provided from Vanderwall and Associates when the targeted area master plan was coming to conclusion. In the plan as adopted is only one, the image on the left, the bubble concept as we refer to. Just generally speaking, how this land should be used primarily for residential. This this parcel should be used primarily for community events or expansion of the Riverfront Arts Center, and then the southern bubble for what they define as expanding the ambiance of downtown Stevens Point, so likely some commercial and mixed-use space on that southern bubble. What wasn't in the originally adopted plan is the image on the right, which gives more perspective of what this bubble concept could look like in action. So this is a conceptual image similar to the Shopko plan that was adopted last May, but it does give some visual representation of what the residential property could look like, and an expansion of the Riverfront Arts Center and reuse of the Chase Bank site could look like over time. So again, this is a conceptual image, but this inclusion of this image is important for us to communicate the use of these future parcels to developers, to really represent the feeling and ambiance of this space and draw some excitement towards the development and redevelopment of these parcels.
And Chris, just for the record, the site where the yellow bubble is, that's the former, it is owned currently by Wisconsin Public Service, former site of the coal gasification plant. The DNR has signed off on it, but there are restrictions on how deep excavation can go before it's disallowed. So it's going to be challenging to develop anything other than slab buildings here because the DNR has put restrictions on how far the ground can be disturbed. I think 18 inches?
Yeah, we are working with the DNR and Wisconsin Public Service to ensure that we have that set in stone before we even recommend breaking ground, but we still have to work through a transfer of property with Wisconsin Public Service.
So again, it's just a plan. There's nothing set in stone. It's not even really set in cardboard. It's a plan. It's a starting point, a vision, if you will. So we're looking at authorization to amend the downtown targeted area master plan with the updates that Adam just explained.
Good job.
Commissioner Hartson?
I just have a question about
Sorry.
that.
Chris, just explain. My bad, sorry.
I tried very hard.
Chris, not Adam.
The WPS parcel, the city wouldn't purchase that,
Yes.
correct? The city would?
We actually had an agreement that has lapsed, but we would actively look at acquiring that, yes.
And there is a process for us to ensure that the city is not liable for
Yes.
the contamination on the site. So
I'm kind of in that business. I'm familiar with the area, and you know, I've investigated some things down there. I would be concerned with the city acquiring that property because even with liability exemption, WPS is pretty big. Maybe they could carry it through, but I know it would go back to the property owner eventually, and I have no doubt that there's significant residual contamination there. If you can do, I mean, right, don't use the land or cover it is good thing, but right, don't start digging stuff up because it's all gonna have to go to a landfill and maybe a special one at that, so that's separate from most of this. But
Yeah, and
since
I
we brought it
appreciate the
up-
insight there. We are well aware of what our potential exposure could be. But that's really not even on the table right now. So-
Right, no, it's like money, that's okay, but I can voice an opinion on it.
And
so.
I appreciate that. Commissioner Schuler.
I just wanted to clarify, we're swapping out the Shopko graphics and adding the riverfront to the existing bubble, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the extent of the changes that we're looking at?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, one quick question about one of the Shopko. It still identifies the Great Lakes as a possible conference center site? And I didn't know if that was off the table now or...
The study shows that it probably wouldn't be successful enough because of the number of rooms and the space. It's not suitable for a multi-day conference.
Okay.
We don't know what we're going to do with the building yet. We have a couple of avenues that we're exploring.
Would it be prudent to remove that ID tag from that
It'd
building?
be prudent to remove the whole building because there hasn't been any discussion about doing anything with that building other than keeping that building.
Okay.
Removing the tag, we could probably do something like that
Okay.
and just take that piece.
You wouldn't want to get the false
that
impression.
piece
As long
off,
as you're
right.
updating the graphic, you might as well.
Well, honestly, Commissioner Schuler, if you wanted to open up a conference center there, all you got to do is come up with the money. We'll sell it. Everything's for sale.
That's a very unique process. Thank you.
I said, if I ever won the Powerball or something, we'd probably get some stuff done in the city finally. So, was that a motion to approve the amendments?
I would make a motion to approve the amendments.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Nebo. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Again, this is just a concept, a plan, a goal, a vision. This is not set in stone. We are not going to put a dome up. It's a plan. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 11 is the March 2025 monthly report. Director?
Nothing too extravagant to report. No single family has started yet in Forest Creek as of this report, but we do have 4 permits that have been pulled and approved. So that contractor is starting out there on 4 homes, so that's exciting. But otherwise, a few 2-family, and then our commercial, the Oaks of Maria, ENT, and then Simplicity Credit Union. But happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay. And we'll start getting into some of the property maintenance violations. Of course, May is, the council has lifted the restriction for lawn maintenance for the month of May. So you probably won't see any lawn care complaints next month. But it does start the summer season, so we want to make sure people understand that June 1st, you need to be back in compliance, or as soon as you can thereafter. I don't remember what day of the week it is. But you'll see those violation reports hopefully, or not hopefully, probably escalate as the summer progresses. That's usually what we see. We got to remind people too that leaving things by the curb is also technically a violation, property maintenance violation. I was driving around today and saw several places that had things placed to the curb. And we just want to remind people that yes, it's great that you're doing it. People hopefully can use some of that stuff, but it technically is a property maintenance violation, giving you 24 hours to have that removed. Item number.
Touch on that for a second.
Sure.
So like for somebody puts something on the curb for free,
When you say something, you got to be a little bit specific, because if I put a picnic table out there, that's completely okay.
all right, an exercise
Fine.
bike.
Exercise bike, you have 24 hours to remove it, or you will get a service fee, or potentially get a service fee.
All right, all right. How
Now,
long
we
do you
do
have to take it off before you can put it back on?
What?
So could you put it up there for 24 hours, put it back in your garage, bring it out next week and put it up again?
I am not going to answer that, Commissioner.
Try just not. I don't know why I'm going there, but I just thought about that free
Things
stuff.
you're looking at getting rid of.
Well, that's like if I'm speeding and nobody sees it, is it still illegal?
Yeah, yeah.
The answer would be yes, it's still illegal, but will you get caught? I'm not going to condone any of that. So
No, it's kind of an institution that
It is,
things are
and it really
posted
helps a
free.
lot of people,
And I never
too.
really thought about it as being a violation.
but it also, I mean, sometimes they'll put a sofa out there, and then it rains. Well, then it's icky, so nobody wants to touch it, so they leave it there. We also offer bulk pickup in the city, so you can go online, purchase a tag, and we will come get it. I think we do that on Mondays for the previous week. So if you have a sofa that you want to get rid of and you don't have any means to haul it to our drop-off, you can purchase a tag online, stick it on your sofa, and put your sofa out Sunday, and we'll come and pick it up the next Monday.
All right.
We do offer that. That's available at stevenspoint.com. Or if you have an exercise bike, apparently Commissioner Arnson needs one. He lives on Foucault. All right.
But
Mary.
good information, not.
It is, it is, and, yeah.
It's good to know.
Yeah, the discussion right now just lends itself to the concept of hippie Christmas in Madison at the end of the school year.
Well, yeah.
It's
Come get it.
There's a plethora of things
I didn't know
for
there
free
was a
out on
deadline for
curbs.
that. 24 hours, huh?
24 hours on the, if it's in the city right-of-way, technically, the boulevard.
All right. So you could have it on your lawn?
Jesus, Pete, what are you trying to get rid of, man? I'll just pick it up. It is illegal, it is against our property maintenance ordinances to have inside implements outside at all.
All right. That's good to know. I
There is a
never
longer period of
specifically
time
knew.
before we do anything about it if it's on your property. If you put a sofa on your porch, for example, an open porch, and some places do that, we don't want that because it's going to get icky and whatever, but we will ask you to remove that one as well.
All right. Good. Sorry about that.
Maybe
Anything else you want to get rid of before we move on?
Maybe Commissioner Arnson likes to ride his exercise bike on the on the driveway.
Any other rules you want to try
in
and
the
skirt?
fresh air.
All right, item number 12 is the director's report. Director Kivala.
Yeah, just a few things. Obviously touched on the business park bid items earlier in the meeting here. Pretty heavy lift coming forward from the executive director, Chloe Cruiser, to change a lot of that, to dissolve the owners association and change the protective covenants. It does take a pretty significant vote, and it will be somewhat like herding cats to get all of the votes needed to make those changes. So pretty heavy lift for her, and of course, city staff will be there to assist when we can. Forest Creek lots are for sale, as the mayor had mentioned previously. We have closed on 7 of the lots. 4 permits have been pulled thus far out of those 7, and then 7 more closings are coming forward here in the future. We do have additional interest, however, nobody else has really pulled the trigger by submitting an offer. Anyone who is interested in submitting an offer, the bid process has closed, so we've kind of ended that process. Really, all you need to do is talk to your real estate agent or act as the agent yourself, submit an offer to purchase to the Community Development Department. We will review, provide comments, et cetera, adjustments, amendments, finalize that, and then we'd work on a closing. So pretty simple process. You just have to make sure you have your financing and all of that in order, all of the background information. Would like to shout out the Town of Hull. They were a great partner in assisting us overcome a little hiccup that we had with utilizing part of their roadway for heavy construction. They do have a Class B road restriction on Brilowski, or a portion of Brilowski. So they worked very diligently with us to create an agreement in which we could utilize that roadway. for construction traffic. We just need all construction to take the route of, all construction traffic to take the route of Highway 10 to Brilowski, and then just up to Forest Creek Road or Golla Road, and then access the subdivision. None of the other residential streets should be utilized for construction traffic, just for safety reasons and obviously their road conditions to maintain those. Shopko site, we're hoping to hear from the EPA on the grant that we submitted, hopefully in the coming weeks. Hopefully it's a good call. Evaluating different parking options in the downtown. So we did receive notice that the current developer that's looking at a site is struggling to include the underground parking as requested. So city staff is just taking a look at that, seeing how that can be accommodated, if that can be overcome, or if it's going to truly hinder the project. So still evaluating that. To pair with that evaluation, we do have a public information meeting and planning session scheduled for May 28th, I believe, at Mid-State. 6
to 7:30
6 to 7:30. So that'll be talking about the different street parking, the park that's being planned, or the green space that's being planned for the downtown, and then just, I guess, parking in the overall site in general. Comprehensive plan, so looking to work with you guys to schedule a special meeting to kick off the comp plan. I believe, Chris, you'll be doing that here.
14th?
14th is for the zoning.
Oh, that's
voting,
zoning.
right?
Right,
Yeah,
sorry.
so when Chris was talking with the Regional Planning Commission here today, they did have quite an agenda that we just wanted to make sure that we had your focus on. We didn't want to have a 3-hour meeting and have your eyes gloss over and forget where you are. So we're going to schedule a special meeting. For that, Chris will work to schedule that. But looking to really start to prioritize the comp plan, as this project is well overdue. The Regional Plan Commission does have a pretty good jump start, I'd say, from your discussion, so that was great to hear. But Chris, I'll let you offer any comment. I know you were in that discussion, I was not, so anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, we'll be looking to schedule a special meeting after our June Plan Commission meeting that will go over the background in the process of updating the comprehensive plan. I guess the North Central Wisconsin Regional Plan Commission staff have asked me to ask you to make sure that you come to that meeting full of thoughts and opinions about the former comprehensive plan.
Not you, Jeff.
Oh, we'll be full of it.
But really to understand what components of the plan that really ring true still to the state. They have already begun to evaluate our demographics and background issues and opportunities, so they are curious about your opinions about issues and opportunities as well as the rest of the cities. So please come prepared, having evaluated our most recent formal comprehensive plan, the one that is adopted, as well as the revisions that were recommended for the Gerke-Washington plan, because they will ask questions about both, or ask for your input based on both of those experiences.
That's a fair bit of documentation for us to prepare on. Are you going to send us a summary or highlight on things that we should pay attention to or not pay attention to, or should we just be comprehensive in our review?
You should be comprehensive in your review. That's why we're looking 6 weeks into the future to schedule a meeting. So I know it's a lengthy document. There is a lot of content in there. If you want the Cliff Notes version, I'm sure that I or Commissioner Schuler could provide some Cliff Notes versions of the document. But if you do have any questions specifically about the plan that was adopted, the Gerke-Washington plan, or the most recent planning efforts for the 2 other regions that we had started but did not formally adopt, be happy to answer any questions that you may have before that June Special Plan Commission meeting. We will, at that meeting, also review and recommend approval of the public participation plan for the comprehensive plan revisions.
Okay. Anything else, Director?
That is it.
Mr. Cook, I saw you jump on a little late. Your item did pass, the conditional use for the garage did pass the Plan Commission earlier this evening. I didn't know if that's what you were waiting on to hear, but We did get.
Yeah, jumped in a little late. Dance class with the girls went a little long, so
right.
I appreciate the update.
You're welcome. All right, with that, our agenda is exhausted, and we stand adjourned at 7:08. Thank you, everyone.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.